Raiders moving to Vegas in 2020, and there you see their bright new shiny Allegiant Stadium. But the pandemic has forced us and so many others to dramatically alter our plans. We're here sharing a message of hope and some of the iconic stars of Las Vegas. There you see Jon Gruden. Knock on wood if you're with me, John. Knock on wood if you're with me. And there's Mike Mayock, who spent a lot of years analyzing this draft, taken up here. So let's go back to Daniel Jeremiah. Jeremiah, what are you thinking about what the Raiders may do with the first of their 2 picks here?
Well, I thought it would be their corner receiver here, and I think with C.J. Henderson already being selected, I would think that points towards a wide receiver. They need to find a Z receiver to replace Antonio Brown. They were so excited about that pick, and obviously bringing him into the building did not work. I think they find his replacement right here, and I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb would be my guess here for the Raiders.
All right, Daniel Jeremiah is in on CeeDee Lamb going to the Raiders. We'll see what happens here. We believe that the pick is close to coming in. In fact, I can confirm that the pick is in to Commissioner Goodell. Let's find out. Does Daniel Jeremiah know what he's talking about? I mean, he does, but you know.
There are many first-evers that are part of this draft, including the first-ever official draft selection by the Las Vegas Raiders. And I've got it right here. So with the 12th pick of the 2020 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Henry Ruggs, wide receiver, Alabama. Congratulations, Raiders. Congratulations, Henry.
Well, there you see Henry Ruggs. Daniel, you nailed the position, but not the player. Henry Ruggs is a fascinating football player. Just so you know, he had 98 catches at Alabama. 24 of them went for touchdowns. In other words, 25% of the time when he caught the ball, he took it to the house. And when he celebrated those touchdowns, you always saw him throw up 3 fingers. That was for his friend, Roderick Scott. They played high school basketball together. And one weekend they were supposed to drive in the same car to a high school tournament. Ruggs was feeling under the weather, had the flu, didn't go. Scott was in a one-man car crash on the highway that trip and was killed in that crash. And Henry Ruggs celebrates his honor throwing up that 3 every time you see him score a touchdown. Jon Gruden, very happy that he's got the burner that ran the 4.27, as is Mike Mayock. Hi, Mike. Make sure the dog is taken care of. But if you want to talk about an athlete, my God, watch what Henry Ruggs does playing basketball. It was absolutely a rim obliteration. He was jumping from everywhere to throw it down at Robert Lee High School. So you know he can play hoops. You know he can fly. His mom once unofficially was clocked at a 4.23 40. He can absolutely scoot, Michael Irvin, and he can take it to the house no matter where he gets the ball.
Yeah, and we knew, Trey, that this was a possibility because of that 4.27 speed. And let's remember now, the Raiders, what do they have to do? They have to face that thing they have in Kansas City with Tyreek Hill. So they wanted to match speed for speed. They wanted to match explosion for explosion. When they score, when Kansas City score, now the Raiders will be able to come right back and score fast. This kid can run fast, but he also goes up high and grab that ball, just like you saw him dunking the basketball.
You know, one thing about Ruggs, Michael, you talk about that speed, he didn't have the drops, and I think the production wasn't up to the level of Jerry Jeudy. But you talk about 4 first-round receivers that Tua was throwing to. Ruggs, and obviously this year Jerry Jeudy, and then next year Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. So a lot of talent, only one football. Ruggs, though, with that speed, I'm sure Jon Gruden with the Raiders. Cliff Branch had a heck of a career in the NFL with that kind of speed and that kind of ability to go vertical and beat you deep, and that's what Henry Ruggs III will be asked to do with the Las Vegas Raiders. Lewis?
The interesting thing about Henry Ruggs is this. He's just not a deep threat. What he really is, he's a catch-and-run threat. And they did a great job at Alabama of doing that, getting him the ball quick and then letting him absolutely just slice through the defense and have those tremendous, tremendous run-and-catch type situations. He's a guy who will catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a guy who can play all 3 positions on the wide receiver. And he's a guy who, DJ, I think the number one thing that he really can do is he can also give you some reps on special teams if you needed him to. two, but getting drafted this high, I have a feeling he won't see very much action on that phase of the game.
Was hurt, never really saw, and Clelin Ferrell didn't really translate what they thought they'd get with the 4th overall pick. Meanwhile, what will they do with their 2nd pick here in the 1st round? The pick is in. Let's go to the commissioner and find out what the Las Vegas Raiders are doing.
We thought it would be fitting here at pick 19, as the Las Vegas Raiders welcome their 2nd selection, to make a special announcement. As you may know, we are scheduled to host a draft in Vegas this year. And we thank so many for the effort they put forth to prepare that possibility. And we think you deserve another shot. So we're happy here to announce that tonight, the Las Vegas Raiders will host the 2020 NFL Draft. Congratulations to Mark Davis, the Raiders organization, and Raiders Nation. We look forward to being there in Las Vegas, and congratulations. And now, with the 19th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Damon Arnette, defensive back, Ohio State.
All right, first of all, congratulations to Las Vegas getting the mulligan. We'll be there in a couple years as we will do the draft from there. But this is a fascinating decision here on a lot of levels by Damon Arnette. This was a kid that had basically decided his college career was over a year ago at cornerback and didn't even show up for some post-season meetings with Ohio State. But then it was a conversation with his father, Chris Carter, the Ohio State Buckeye wide receiver and Hall of Famer, that said, you need to come back for another year at school to be the best player you can be. And Mel, we thought we'd see a 2nd or 3rd round grade on Damon Arnette. How surprised are you that he's in the 1st round?
Early 2nd round grade. I think you look at that 3rd corner, Trey. We have been saying, who's the 3rd corner? You could never build a consensus on who that 3rd corner was. After Jeff Okudah, Ohio State, and C.J. Henderson, Florida, DJ, you just couldn't find that guy. Who that 3rd corner was. A.J. Terrell's already been taken by Atlanta, maybe a little higher than we thought. And here, Damon Arnette, I'll tell you, he played through that injury. He tackled well. And when you're opposite Jeff Okudah, you're going to have action. And he held up very well. So I think the corners are reaching a little bit, DJ, because they're forcing these needs. Because, like I say, that 3rd corner was very much up in the air.
Yeah, and for me, Mel, he was my 8th corner. So I think people had that 3rd corner in all different orders. You know, one thing I'll say about Arnette, while I was surprised that he went this high, he's very competitive, and that fits with what they've tried to do in building this team over the last couple years. A very physical, very competitive kid who can really find and play the football, which you've got to have at that position, Lewis. Look, his kid is tough, he's physical, and he can find the ball. I just thought it was a little bit earlier than I expected.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit earlier than a lot of people expected. But when you watch the film and you watch Jeffrey Okudah and then you watch Damon Arnette, look, I can tell you this. He actually plays from a technique standpoint just as well as Okudah in many respects, especially when you're talking about playing press coverage. He's very good at staying patient at the line, very physical with his hands, very physical down the field as far as not allowing wide receivers to create separation with their body. And he is a guy who's a finisher. I think it's a little bit higher than maybe some people expected, but when you really break down his game, he really is a good cover corner who really should develop into a very good pro.
Well, listen, he was a guy that listened to the people that were telling him, you need to come back and you will improve your draft status. And that's exactly what he did. We thought it was going to be improving to a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Instead, he goes to the Raiders with the 19th overall pick in the 1st round. By the way, 2nd time in the last 4 drafts, the Buckeyes have had at least 2 first-round defensive backs and had 3 back in 2017. Put your feet up, John. You're done for the night.
3, 2. Thank you to the Pruitt family. The entire NFL family joins me in offering our condolences as we join you tonight in honoring Rico's memory by making this next pick in his honor. With the 80th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Lynn Bowden, running back, Kentucky.
Well, this is really curious because you could call him a running back, you could call him a wide receiver, or you could call him what they had him play last year, which was quarterback. He was one of the best dual threat quarterbacks coming out of high school. And Lewis, look, he was supposed to make the transition to wide receiver, but then, of course, they had some injuries. They asked him to go back and play quarterback, and he set all kinds of rushing records for the Wildcats this year.
Yeah, and I think wide receiver is where he'll ultimately wind up in the NFL, and he will work primarily in the slot, as you see on the screen, because that's where he's the most instinctive. That's where he's able to find zone holes, exploit them, get down the field, has good ball tracking skills, and can finish on the play. He's a guy who really has good running ability after the catch, and he's someone who understands field awareness. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to get open. He's someone with the ball in his hands in the open field. He just has natural run instincts. And really what Jon Gruden has gotten a guy like Bowden is this. He can line him up just about everywhere, and he can really make you as a defense try to figure out when he comes onto the football field, is he going to be a quarterback? Is he going to be a slot receiver? Is he going to be a running back? And that affects your personnel groupings and how you're going to defend him. What Jon Gruden has done by drafting him now is just giving the AFC West some more to think about when Lynn Bowden gets on the football field.
Yeah, he was the winner of the 2019 Paul Hornung Award for the nation's most versatile player. Again, all he did was set a school record for career and single-season rushing yards by a quarterback, break the SEC single-game rushing yard by a quarterback when he had 284 on the ground against Louisville, and turned the program's highest single-season yards per rush attempt average at 7.9. Lynn Bowden Jr. did a little bit of everything for them, and there's the award we're talking about with him. Came from a very rough upbringing in Youngstown, Ohio, where he saw a lot of stuff at a very, very early age. The homicide rate in Youngstown, Ohio is about 7 times the national average, and Lynn Bowden Jr. is now going to be a very versatile player for the Raiders. See how Jon Gruden and Mike Mayock find a way to get him on the field and use his very unique skill set. Meanwhile, let's go back to the commissioner for the very next pick in this draft.
I'll do it anyhow. With the 81st pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Bryan Edwards, wide receiver, South Carolina.
All right, back-to-back picks now for the Raiders, and there you see the numbers for Bryan Edwards. Very, very productive for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Set career records for games with a catch, 48, receptions, 234, and receiving yards, 3,045. Also ranks third in school history with 22 career receiving touchdowns. DJ, he was not able to work out of the combine after breaking his foot while training. So what are we seeing out of Bryan Edwards going forward?
Well, he'd have been in the second round in this draft if he had a chance to be healthy going through the process. He's somebody that's going to play that X receiver on the outside at the next level. You line him up, he wins with physicality at the line of scrimmage. You see his ball skills with the one-handed snag against Tennessee. He reminds me a lot of Chris Godwin when he was coming out of college. I think this kid has that type of ability. And when you look at now what the Oakland Raiders have done, Henry Ruggs to be their Z receiver, somebody that can really take the top off the defense. Then you come back with Bowden, who can be a wildcat quarterback, gadget guy, use him in the slot, put him on the opposite side in the slot from Hunter Renfrow. You've got something to do with him. And now you've got Bryan Edwards to be that X to compete with Tyrell Williams. You guys know Jon Gruden likes to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He might have to start getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to think up some new plays with all these new wide receivers.
Well, they are clearly being true to the Raiders' spirit with the number of wide receivers they have taken, including the speedsters, Henry Ruggs as well. But there are going to be a lot of toys for that offense now for Jon Gruden and company to play with. Again, Henry Ruggs ran that 4.27 at the combine, and basically 1/4 of his catches at Alabama were touchdowns. Somewhat questioned about that move for Damon Arnett in the first round, but then they get Lynn Bowden Jr. and then Bryan Edwards in back-to-back selections. Jon Gruden and company. There you see his son Deuce there in the background as well. You might imagine, yes, he is a power lifter. Mike Mayock and company checking in on what's going on from another room. Meanwhile, it is now the Cowboys back on the clock.
We got the 100th pick. With the 100th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Tanner Muse, linebacker, Clemson.
So Tanner Muse, linebacker, is off the board. Mel, tell us a little bit about Tanner Muse.
Yeah, what he is, Trey. Think about Hunter Renfrow they got out of Clemson last year. Tanner Muse was a workout warrior. In addition to being a guy who can help you on special teams, made a lot of plays in that defensive secondary, came up, played as a linebacker in a lot of ways. This kid has dual potential. He's going to be a big-time special teams player. All over the field, very instinctive player, good tackler. They lined him up in a variety of ways there at Clemson. Again, you're getting a guy, like I say, like Hunter Renfrow. They hit on him last year. They go back to Clemson. They got Clelin Ferrell last year early. Tanner Muse is going to make the team. Whether he's going to be a factor in that deep patrol, he's going to be a big-time, have a big-time opportunity to compete and obviously contribute right away on special teams.
Yeah, you mentioned Hunter Renfrow, right? Well, let's take a look at the number of Clemson players that have found their way onto the roster here. Well, this is the Raiders selections, rather, excuse me. You got Henry Ruggs there at Alabama, but these are now the current Raiders players. Trayvon Mullen, the cornerback last year in the second round. Clelin Ferrell, 4th overall pick. Then Hunter Renfrow. His nickname was Third and Renfrow last year for the Raiders, which I thought was fantastic. And there's Tanner Muse, who goes now in the 3rd round there to the Raiders. Yes, Mike Mayock, be happy, enjoy. Football things are being discussed. That's why we do this. The draft continues on ESPN, ABC, and the NFL Network as well. Knock on wood if you're with me, John.
The Detroit Lions have traded the 109th pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. With the 109th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select John Simpson, guard from Clemson.
So back-to-back offensive linemen here, and shout out to John Simpson, the first in his family to graduate from college. And we got to give a shout out to the restaurant Hall's Chop House in Charleston, South Carolina. They had a program trying to reach out to people that were looking for work. The head of that Chop House basically got him a job, and they've been part of the family ever since there. So this is a great job for the people at Hall's Chop House, and a great job here for John Simpson, Mel. This guy, another Clemson Tiger going to the Raiders.
That's the thing, Trey. I was going to say, Tanner Muse, so we had last year Hunter Renfrow and Clelin Ferrell, so they're going to this talent-laden Clemson Tiger program and getting some players. And Simpson, tell you, that offensive line was strong, was the best offensive line Clemson's had in a while. Texas A&M game, Syracuse, NC State, dominant. Think about as a run blocker, drives that defender off the ball. He can pull. Not dominant in pass protection. The plays, heavy hands at times. He knocks defenders off their path. A guy that I think is a good prospect, not great, but I think as a guard going to the Raiders, certainly to help Derek Carr and that offense along the interior. The veteran experience, solid technique. He's played in a ton of big games. He's been fairly consistent game in and game out. I think John Simpson will be a guy who competes for a starting job fairly early in his pro career.
Yeah, Tommy Hall does something called Teach the Need, and he tells high school kids, if you need a job, come see me. As you look at the board that the Raiders have drafted, he said very few people actually take him up on it. John Simpson did. And by the way, Hall's Chop House, really good steak. They're hoping they got really good beef, as John Gruden and Mike Mayock and company very, very excited about the pick. Another one of those Clemson Tigers going to the Vegas Raiders. The draft is underway, and we are thumbs up across the board. Stay with us. We're just getting started. That way. Also, another defensive back off the board, Mel. It is Amik Robinson out of Louisiana Tech. Amik goes to the Raiders.
Back-to-back picks in the secondary from Louisiana Tech, with Robertson going to the Raiders. How about a guy who has tremendous ball skills? Only 5'8.5", 187 pounds, but he had 16 pass breakups, 5 interceptions this past year. Also had 8 tackles for loss, had 3 picks in 1 game against Southern Miss. When he lacks in height, he makes up in those great ball skills. He's like a wide receiver playing corner, plays with that swagger, makes his presence felt against the run. What he's going to have to do in the NFL with the Raiders, and I know John Gruden and Mike Mayock love that physical style, is not draw penalty flags. We'll see if he can do that in the NFL, adjust to the game, and also shore up tackling a bit, sometimes a little overly aggressive. But this is one of those Gruden grinders who makes plays on the ball in that secondary of Amik Robertson.
And Mel, if there weren't some concerns medically with his hips, he would have been long gone right now. I think you can make a case he's the best nickel cornerback in this entire draft. You referenced that production, the 14 interceptions. To me, I saw a little bit of Pac-Man Jones with his ball skills and his toughness. You watch him against Texas. I know he's 5'8". He goes up against Colin Johnson, one of the biggest wide receivers in this draft class, and he jumps him at the line of scrimmage. He's got some bulldog in him. You can see why Mike Mayock and John Gruden have an affection here for Amik Robertson.
Yeah, DJ, you talked about that health issue. Surgery to repair a torn groin muscle on January 17th, and ultimately led to his decision to not participate in workouts at the Combine. So there we see what the Raiders have done. Henry Ruggs was the first wideout off the board, and now another Clemson player. They're all flocking to hang around with Curtis Renfrow. That's what it is. Then you have Amik Robertson, the cornerback out of Louisiana.